back live in Castletown at King William's College with the students talking about life in general as well. And let's go first of all I want to go to Millie, because I want to talk to you about you're young and you're a female. Mm-hmm. Do you feel under pressure with body image on social media and the world in general?
Personally, I don't feel under pressure about my body because I've read a lot of body positivity things. For example, Jamila Jamil, she's quite a prominent female body positive influencer at the minute.
To the uninitiated, who is she? What does she do?
She's a famous person, and she posts things on social media about body positivity, allowing people to recognise what else to them is more important. For example, their values rather than what they weigh. Yeah.
And do you think that's a kind of a big pressure nowadays to young people? Do you think there's a lot of pressure on people to look the same way, look the right way, wear
definitely.
the right clothes?
Yeah, because we are always consuming so much media, it's impossible not to be affected by certain things. For example, the types of body shape that you should have, especially for girls as well. Because as we're growing up, we're just so in the presence of people.
Well, you'll see on the video, and if you're watching the video, you'll know this is possibly the best looking group of people we've had speaking for at least 24 hours, I think it is. Everybody looks very privileged here as well. Let me go to William and Matthew then. As young men, do you feel under any pressure whatsoever about your body type, shape and look?
I personally don't, but I can understand how other males my age could feel that, because you see all these ads with these perfect, above 6 foot, 6-pack, even 8-pack, big muscles guys, and it's almost like saying, you need to be this way to attract females and be you have to be like that.
Yeah.
I personally don't feel like that, but I can see how other people can be led into feeling unhappy with themselves.
Why would anyone want a 6-pack or an 8-pack, do you think?
I don't know. I think maybe to attract the females or males.
Okay, so what do you think women are attracted by if it's not a 6-pack or 8-pack?
I like to think personality, but some people are quite vain in that sense.
William, you're smiling next. You don't feel under any pressure, do you?
No, not really. I mean, I think there is definitely a lot of pressure to not be too heavy and not be too light, and you've got to be the right height and you've got to wear the right clothes and stuff. But I don't personally really feel under any pressure to conform to ideas.
In terms of social media and in terms of peer pressure, often referred to as bullying as well, how much of a problem do you think that is?
Well, I haven't actually been subject to that, but I think it's definitely quite evident in some on Instagram. Sometimes you see people body shaming, and I think definitely being overweight is always seen as a problem or thing. And I know lots of people go to the gym to try and conform with ideas of how they should look and things.
Okay, we've got some messages, and one I'll come to. Well, we did have some messages, but my screen's gone blank. So let me talk about alcohol. Alcohol and drugs. This is always a topical one. Who here thinks that cannabis, medicinal cannabis or cannabis in general, should be legalized? Anyone here? Nobody's raising. Anybody got an opinion on cannabis? Oh, here we are. William again. No. Sorry, Matthew. Matthew, cannabis.
I'm not advocating it should be legalized, but I think there's definitely arguments for why it should be legalized, and I think it has to be taken into very careful consideration what negatives there are for it being illegal. So I know there's definitely issues with people being punished too heavily for maybe just having a small amount of drugs, and it can ruin people's lives just being punished for it. I'm not saying that it should be legalized, but I do think it should definitely be.
Well, there's a growing movement to say that cannabis should be legalized, that personal cannabis possession should be allowed, and possibly in your lifetime that may happen, and you may look back as an old man and say, I remember talking about the legalization of cannabis. Lots of people say that alcohol does more damage to people than cannabis does. And do you think that's an issue that your generation is going to have to deal with?
I think it probably is, but I personally think that it should be people's personal decision what they do, and if they want to take drugs or drink alcohol, then they can do that, because we shouldn't really be like telling them what to do. But I think in the future we might have to deal with the problems of legalized cannabis. There might be more consumption of it, or might be
Okay. Robert, I'd like to talk to you because you are looking for a career in care and in people's health. What do you feel about the legalization of cannabis?
Like Matthew said earlier, I feel as though there are a lot of positives and negative effects to do with legalizing cannabis. And as we can see in countries that have already legalized it, there hasn't been many big negative impacts as such.
Well, it's legal in many states in the United States.
Yes,
Portugal's legalized. Obviously, Amsterdam is famous for it. And lots of people advocate it being legalized on the Isle of Man, so it would be a more liberal regime.
I feel like sometimes it may kind of help as well with some people that are trying to get through certain things that may not, the drugs that may be available or accessible to them might not be quite enough. So if somebody's going through something like phantom pain or some extreme injury of sorts, and the drugs that the government are providing aren't enough, maybe just something to help them feel slightly more normal for once, not to get a buzz feeling off, but maybe just to at least make them feel as though they can kind of interact with others in a normal way, is sometimes the best option.
Yeah, the case for medicinal cannabis is that it'll provide pain relief without the side effects, and lots of bowel conditions, lots of intestinal conditions can be alleviated by this. So if medical technology allows us to do that, let me say, Christina, what are your thoughts on cannabis?
I think I don't think it should be definitely illegal or definitely legal. I think just somewhere in between. But if you're going to get it, I think that you need to sort of restrict yourself, on how much you're going to, take, if that made sense.
I mean, this is a problem that your generation will have to deal with. Years ago, America banned alcohol, prohibition, and it didn't really work because people used to brew it illegally and the people would drink anyway. And it seems that there's a tidal wave of drugs, there's a tidal wave of narcotics which will approach your generation, and you're going to have to sort it out. You will have to come up with some form of remedy which will mean that you are the future, you're the young people of today, and you've got a lot of life to live within you. Who's thinking of going into politics? Anybody here, by the way? Anybody? Apart from Alex, who wants to go into the diplomatic corps, would you consider a career in politics?
I would actually, and I have considered it. However, I think being a politician is a lot of being in the spotlight. There's a lot of you have to be very careful in what you say. You're constantly under other people's watch. You also have to kind of live up to be a good role model. Currently, at this point, I don't think I meet any of the check boxes. However, it would be very interesting to maybe be a part of other people's lives like that.
Do you think politicians go into politics for the right reasons?
It's hard to say. I
Well,
mean,
presumably a politician would go into politics to change life for the better and to help people.
yeah, naturally, to represent their people in the government and to, make life better for their citizens. However, a lot of times for the wrong reasons, would be for that fame or for money or for maybe just pushing. There's many politicians will go into a government, and they're like in the States right now, it's very divided with like Democrats and Republicans. Everyone is almost at the opposite end of the spectrum, the political spectrum, and so it's hard to say nowadays what you want your politics to be, because both of them can be so extreme. So I think new politicians need to step up nowadays to provide a more middle alternative. And that's, if I want to go that route, I think that's what I would like to do.
Okay, can you name any politicians on the Isle of Man?
Unfortunately, no. I haven't been here long enough.
Mia, can you name any politicians on the Isle of Man?
Not really.
No? Cameron?
Well, I mean, I know the First Minister.
Who is
Howard Quayle.
Okay. Cameron, can you name any
I've
politicians?
only been on the Isle of Man for 10 weeks. So
Okay,
I don't
well,
know much about politics.
Who's your favourite South African politician?
I'll probably say our president, Cyril Ramaphosa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Christina, any Manx politicians?
No, I'm not really.
Can you name any at all?
No.
Robert, can you name any? Everyone's scratching their heads now.
I'll be honest, I did prepare some MHKs to kind of mention before I came in here, because I heard about how you'd possibly ask one of these questions, and now I've forgotten them.
Okay. That worked well, didn't it? Millie, can you name any politicians?
No, but I feel as if a lot of the media focus on British politicians rather than in the Isle of Man.
Okay. Matthew, can you name any?
No.
Okay. William, can you name any?
I think Alfred Cannon.
Only because he's an old boy of King William's College, as was his father.
There is Lawrence Skelly.
Okay. Izzy, can you name any?
No, I can't.
No? And Nick, can you name any?
Definitely not Manx.
Who's your favourite Ukrainian politician?
Probably Vitaly Klitschko. Just for the fact, even though he's not being really good at it, and I don't think he's still the mayor of Kiev, but probably he is still. But just for the way he talks, and just for the fact that he's been a boxer who jumped into a political career, and he's not really good at it, and just the way he speaks to people and the way he presents his ideas, which might make sense, but just the way he presents it just makes no sense.
Well, he's a form of populism, isn't he? And populism's been sweeping the globe, from Donald Trump to Nigel Farage, Beppe Grillo in Italy, Marine Le Pen in France. Populism seems to be sweeping politics. Yeah.
True.
Okay, more to talk about between now and then as well. We've talked about Facebook and Instagram. You mentioned British politics, and thank you, Millie, for bringing that up. What do you think of Brexit?
That's a very good question. I feel as if, because we're in the Isle of Man, we are less directly affected by it, but the consequences of it have affected us.
Well, we'll get what we're given.
Yeah.
We will get handed down to us by the UK. Do you think it's a good idea in principle?
I feel as if I really don't know. I feel as if there's a lot of scaremongering about it, about the impact.
Do you consider yourself European?
European.
Do you think of yourself as Manx, British, European?
I consider myself Manx, but because it's an international school, we meet lots of different cultures.
Okay, Matthew, what do you think of Brexit?
Well, I have no interest in it anymore, but I was actually on holiday in the UK from New Zealand when they were voting on it. And my dad and I were both shocked by the result, because we thought it was going to be a clean sweep to stay, just because we couldn't see any real benefits to leaving. And I think even now, no one really has a clue what's going to happen if we leave. And
do you care? Do you care about Brexit?
I think not particularly. I think it's going to be down to a few select people to decide what happens, and if they don't do what represents the people, then I don't think they should be in office. I think they probably should have had another poll to see if people were still willing to leave, because no one really knew what it was about on that first
Okay, okay. William, I want to talk about King William's College. Obviously, it's a public school on the Isle of Man. Do you feel any different to schools, other schools on the Isle of Man?
I think that there are some differences, but in terms of, I think it's sort of the same in terms of, like, it's everything's an education. I think there are some distinct differences, but yeah, I guess different in a way.
Because lots of people have their own views about King William's College. They'll drive by King William's College. It looks like a big mansion on the hill.
Yeah.
You may say differently, being inside it as well. And they obviously know that people pay to come to King William's College. It's a fee-paying school. Does that weigh on your mind at all?
Not really for me, because I feel like there's a lot of benefits to it. Like we get loads of foreign people here. We are more open to other cultures. Like we learn about that. So I find it doesn't really weigh on my mind. But I have a lot of friends that go to other schools that.
Okay, all right. Good to talk to you. Thanks to Alex and Mia and Cameron and Christina and Robert and Millie and Matthew and William and Izzy and Nick. Thanks to Sarah Hendy and Ben Hartley and Matty Cunningham. I've been Andy Wint. We've been live at King William's College. We'll be out again fairly shortly, but I want to thank all the students here, and this will be up as a video fairly shortly. So today, thank you, King William's College, and we'll be back shortly.